So, lads, obviously, the Caitlin Clark Time interview happened, and look, I don't really mind anything in it. I don't really mind anything from Caitlin Clark. I will say, not that happy about Temi Figbenle basically implying the only reason Caitlin Clark was as big as she was because she's white. Like, don't particularly like that. And that's the one thing in all of this that I actually have an issue with is that, where I'm like, no, she shoots the ball from 30 feet. She has fans. It doesn't really matter. Like, she has fans everywhere. She has fans all over the world. It doesn't matter. Like, she has fans in the freaking Philippines. She has fans in Uganda. Uganda fans all wearing Caitlin Clark stuff. I really hate that implication. But other than that, I don't think there's anything really bad in that. And if you guys agree or disagree, subscribe or don't subscribe. I don't really care. If you guys disagree with the sentiment, that's fine. But I don't really mind. Like, a lot of people had issues with Caitlin Clark, with what she said, with the whole, or like, oh, when she basically gave her Paige Becker speech. The reality is that she has said those same things 100 times already. She has tried to uplift every single person in the league 100 times. And obviously, what race are the majority of people in the league? She has said nothing bad about her players. She does not want the narrative of her being targeted to be out there. She never has. She said at the time that she didn't think Dejanay meant to hit her. She said at the time that she spoke highly of Kennedy Carter at the time. Like, these are stuff she said 100 times. But I don't understand why people have an issue with it now, because maybe she worded it in a different way that made it sound differently than it is. And it's two extremes. Like, obviously, the people that aren't fans of Caitlin Clark because of Caitlin Clark, the people that are only fans of her because they think she represents being against something that they're against. And the reality is like she hasn't changed anything. It's like she's said exactly what she said in this interview 100 times. I just have a real problem with the absolute scumbags in sports media. The people that pretend to be sports media people, but in reality they just want to talk about politics. Your David Dukes of the world, your man Williamsons of the world, and they're like, this is what we've always wanted Caitlin to say. It's like, no. Caitlin has said it 100 times. She just said it in a way you wanted her to say it. That whole interview, the way she said, not even the way she said, the way I'd say it was almost pushed into her saying, you think that she said, I'm only popular because I'm white. And she didn't say that. She did not say that at all. She literally tried to get these players, spot bonuses for her come to town and them getting more fans. She has tried to push every single player in this league when they've played against her. But because now she has probably said the exact same thing she said 100 times in a more performative way, you're saying it's some gotcha. No, these people in sports media are scumbags. They did everything they could to break a 22-year-old. That's what their goal was. Their goal was to break her. Their goal was not this. And the funniest thing is they think, oh, great. Their goal was either 1, to break her, or 2, to turn her into Paige. And the reality is that Caitlin Clark has said this 100 times before. She's not just all of a sudden going to take a back seat. She's going to she's going to do everything she can to win the MVP next year. And she is going to trash talk while doing all the other shit that obviously these people expect her no longer to be able to do it. For people being like, oh, they didn't expect Caitlin to say this. Why? She's already said it 100 times before. And for the people in the media who have tried to break her, and I mean this, break her, they've called her every name under the sun. They've heavily implied that she's racist. They've said that she doesn't care about women's basketball. She doesn't care about the league because she didn't want to do the 3-point contest. And now they're trying to use this as some sort of gotcha, being like she's on our side. No. Caitlin Clark's someone who doesn't want to speak any of this. She doesn't want to look on social media, do anything on social media. And look, this was the time she wanted to speak up, and that's fine. The reality of the situation is that if a player wants to speak on these issues, they can. If a player doesn't, they don't have to. It's a big problem with the WNBA, and it's something that's going to change. Like, you can't have a professional sports league where it is a requirement to be an activist. If you want to be one, great. If you don't, okay, go play ball. Like, you've even got like Tamika Catchings defending her. You've got Cheyenne Parker-Tyus defending her. And then you've got Renee Montgomery, who, again, implied Caitlin Clark was the worst thing to ever happen to the NBA, to the WNBA. Her refusing to comment on the situation. The fact is that this entire situation, and by the way, if this entire situation means the WNBA loses the people that hate the league and want the league to fail, but want Caitlin to succeed and basically use Caitlin as a symbol of the failing of the WNBA, if the WNBA loses those people because of this, cool. And the problem is like, I think a lot of my channel are that. And I think they'll be happy about that as well. But the one thing I really hate about this is that the people that they tried to bully Caitlin Clark out of this league. They tried to break her. They're now using this as some sort of got you and a proof of the fact that we were right all along. It's like, no, you were dickheads. Like, you are horrible people. You're genuinely horrible people. Your goal is to not talk about basketball. You are in the sports media and you don't talk about the sport of basketball. You just want to talk about narratives. And the reality of the situation is you spent the last year trying to break a 22-year-old. And now you're trying to hold some sort of moral high ground. You don't get to hold a moral high ground. The reality is you don't. And you're holding moral high ground over people that, in fairness, you're equally as bad as. Like I'm sorry, these sections of sports media that are all champion Caitlin Clark now after bullying her for the last year, after trying to break her for the last year, trying to champion her now, fuck you. No. You don't just get to do that. And people don't forget. You don't forget the horrible things you said, the horrible things you implied, the horrible things you implied on a 22-year-old, and the fact that you wanted a 22-year-old to effectively be a damn martyr. And the fact is, every single one of them is going to turn back when Caitlin Clark comes out and she hits her first three-pointer in Angel Reese's face, and she does some sort of like jump in front of the crowd and hypes up the crowd in front of Chicago and starts trash talking and has her 25-point double-double in the first game of the season and is clearly the cockiest person on the court and is clearly going to be the best player on the court. When that happens, they're going to turn on her again. And you know it. You just know it. Because no matter what her opinions are, because Caitlin Clark's a good person. Like, she's been trying to uplift the league for a year. We know that. She's tried to uplift her teammates. She tried to uplift the rest of the league. She tried to uplift the legends. She tried to grow the league with her. Because she knows how big of a phenomenon she is, and she's tried to grow everything with her. And the reality is that these people don't care. They don't care. They don't want Caitlin Clark to be at this stratosphere and bring up the league with her. They want Caitlin Clark to minimize herself, break herself, so that no matter how small the pile is, your A'ja Wilsons are still on top. Because that's all they care about. They don't care about basketball. They don't care about the growth of the league. They're getting their money from these companies, and they know once the league starts to grow, and once people care about the actual sports, they're getting their ass fired. They're getting fired. They know that. So they want the league to be as small as possible so they can keep their little club and their little jobs. And the only way to do that is to make sure they break this 22-year-old. The reality situation is they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that because they think today was some sort of weird turning point and they got closer to literally breaking her. Because Caitlin Clark said nothing she hasn't said 100 times. She's genuinely a good person. She wants to uplift everyone around her. I think every one of her teammates will say that. There was a circus going on around her, which she had no obligation to speak out about, and she obviously chose to today, and fair play to her. I don't know why anyone would have an issue with that. People can choose what they want to speak out about, they can choose what they don't want to speak out about. Anyone saying that she didn't have to do anything, unless someone put a gun to her head and forced her, unless the WNBA forced her to say this, it's a different story, and if she wanted to, fair enough. But let's not forget how none of this she hasn't said before, how all of her actions over the past year would show that she probably meant what she said today. But yet, she had to say it in a certain way that can be interpreted as her minimizing herself for all of the horrible people that pretend to be sports media and have pretended to be NBA media, but in reality have been just trying to break 22-year-old. So anyway, yeah, rant over. See you guys.